And joining me now in the studio to discuss this idea of Turkish nationalism further is Nagehan Alci. She's a journalist at Haberturk newspaper, and our very own Hakki Ocal, who's returning once again. He's, of course, a lecturer at Haldun University. Thank you so much for being here. Now, recently, the Center for American Progress, it's a think tank based in the US, conducted a national survey in Turkey. They polled about 2,500 people and to ascertain rising nationalist attitudes in Turkey. And one of the questions that they asked was, how important was it to be a Turk, or to have been born a Turk? 86% of respondents said it was either very important or somewhat important. Why do you think it's so important for a lot of people in this country to take pride in being Turks? Nagehan.
Well, actually this question has, I think, many aspects. First of all, we should ask ourselves what those people understand of being a Turk. I think in the last maybe 5-6 years, the perception of the state has changed in Turkey. Because before President Erdogan became President Erdogan, before he got so strong in politics, the state apparatus was controlled actually mainly by military and bureaucratic elite. And the masses could not identify themselves with the state. Now, with Erdogan becoming stronger in years, he has been in power for about 16 years, but he has become the real power actually in the last 5-6 years. So
and has emerged as a nationalistic figure.
Well, he managed to change the tools operating the state. So for the first time in modern Turkish history, maybe, the elected politicians have become the real power controlling the state. So people's notion, people's perception of state has changed. So for the masses, I think it's easier nowadays to identify themselves with the state, which I think contributed to the enhancing of the nationalistic ideas. But we should, of course, ask ourselves if those 86% of the respondents understand an ethnic identity of being a Turk, or if being a Turk means for them an umbrella identity. For example, if being a Turk also includes the Kurds as well. Well, I think that's one of the most important questions we should ask ourselves.
That's a very important point that Nagehan raises, Hakka, that the idea of what it means to be a Turk has gone through an evolution from the purview of the elites after Atatürk to a more egalitarian or open-based identity. What do you make of it?
That's exactly true. I mean, when you go back to 1930s, when this Turkism was being defined, the question was, it was defined as opposed to multi-ethnicity of Ottomanism. Now, they were, remember those days, our viewers will remember those days, nationalism was on rise all over Europe, but Turks were recovering from the ashes of Ottomanism, which was multi-ethnic entity, and in which you had Kurds having pride in being Kurd, or Turks having pride in being Turk. Now, Atatürk and the new republic created a new constitutional definition of the word. Again, we have to look if this new nationalism is going to be something like expansionism, or if those catchwords like Kızıl Elma are going to be transferred into some sort of irredenta. That's not the case. I mean, go and ask Turkish people, to the same people who responded to this research survey, if they really want to go and invade all Ottoman areas in Middle East, they would say no. They are perfectly happy because we have been inculcated with the slogans like peace at home, peace in the world, kind of thing. We don't have, I mean, the very thing Erdogan said when he was starting this cleanup job along the frontiers was, we don't have an eye on one iota of anyone else's land. This is important. I mean, what is happening is just patriotism, if you ask me.
It's interesting, Hakka, that you mentioned that Turks don't have an expansionist idea of their nationalism, but let's listen into what the leader of the main nationalist party in Turkey, Devlet Bahçeli, had to say following the Afrin operation in Syria.
Pek tabii olarak Afrin Suriye'nindir.
Of course, Afrin is Syria. However, if the Syrian government cooperates with terrorism, history will be revived. The memories will rise once again, and we will have the right to keep the land that we have left 100 years ago, at least until it reaches peace and stability.
Kavuşuncaya kadar
Devlet Bahçeli Hakka seems to disagree with your specific assertion that Turks don't have
He
an
does.
expansionist
He does. He
idea.
does. He
So what do you
does,
make of
doesn't
it?
I mean, this is very nationalistic party. I mean, the political program they have is some sort of supremacy for Turkish people, not Turks, ethnic Turks, but for the Turkish people. However, if we pay a little more attention to what he said, he's not talking about expanding the existing borders. He wants to keep the peace there. I mean, we've been wounded a lot from the bombs coming from those corridor state, Rojava adventure and everything. And whenever you say such things, Afrin and Rojava or something, people immediately remember the equip and train programs of the United States for the Kurds.
It's interesting you say that because as part of the survey that I mentioned earlier from the Center of American Progress, they also asked a question on, should Turkey have a more isolationist position in the world? And 55% of respondents said yes, Turkey needs to chart its own course without other countries. Nagehan, why this isolationism? Because this is a country at a crossroads. It was part of a larger empire, but now it's shrunk to its present-day position. So is there this unease or this friction within Turkish society on a bigger role or a more limited role?
I think to answer this question, we have to look at the general stand of the world today. The world is going through hard times, especially in our region, in the Middle East. I think people feel kind of threatened, and that's why they want to look a little more inward, which I think is not the right response to overcome such a threat coming from outside to Turkey.
Hakki Ocal, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Nagehan Alci, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.